is in the Washington Post. Biden's executive actions for economic relief at a glance. President Joe Biden signed a pair of executive orders Friday aimed at offering a quick dose of relief to the economy still hammered by the coronavirus. Congress is still working on the $1.9 trillion stimulus, nutrition and government aid. Keep in mind, Donald Trump cut food stamps in the middle of a pandemic. I'm going to say that again. Donald Trump cut food stamps in the middle of a pandemic. And he was trying to get rid of Obamacare at the same time. So much winning, right? So this order aims to increase by 15% the amount of money going to families of children who are missing meals because of school closures from the pandemic. For children who can no longer eat in schools, they receive payments to cover food costs at home equal to $570 per child per school day. So the order asks the Agriculture Department to consider issuing new guidance that would more accurately reflect the cost of missing meals and make it easier to claim benefits. Guys, that's a good thing. So Joe Biden is by no accounts a Bernie Sanders progressive left social democrat, right? But he is stepping up in a big way with these executive orders to make things a little bit better in the country as we're being ravaged by the coronavirus and the economic downturn, right? Federal workers. This order includes an effort to promote a $15 minimum wage for federal workers and to preserve civil service protections against political interference. The order revokes a trio of executive orders signed by President Donald Trump that limited the bargaining rights of unionized government workers. Trump's orders made the employee discipline process stricter, restricted union representatives' access to office space, and cut the time for collective bargaining. So guys, collective bargaining is one of the most important things that unions do, especially for public employees, to make sure that they have a living wage, a livable wage. And now we know that Congress is going to take this, the Democratic Party in Congress is going to take the living wage, the minimum wage, they want to raise it across the United States as part of this COVID relief and economic stimulus that they're working on. Again, Republicans are trying to block it every step of the way. Democrats are probably going to have to pass this through budget reconciliation, which is a very specific, procedural vote that allows, if it's through budget negotiations, the Democrats don't have to be beholden to a filibuster. If you didn't know, back in Trump's first year, the Republicans, they passed their massive tax cuts, which have ballooned our deficit, removed tons of tax from the wealthiest corporations and Americans. They passed that through budget reconciliation. So, using budget reconciliation now to stimulate the economy and invest massive amounts of money, I think it's paramount. I think it's very important. So Joe Biden is doing a good thing here. So Ryan says, too bad for Trump to cut food, or so bad for Trump to cut food stamps. I use food stamps. I am back to work somewhat. I'm jumping back on my feet slowly. Good for you, Ryan. This is what these programs are here for. They're a relief to help, in times of great need like this, in times of duress. It's an economic stabilizer. It's very important. I don't think people realize. I think more people now are realizing how important these types of programs are, because for the first time they're trying to access them. Whether it's unemployment in your state, whether it's something like food stamps, direct relief. People aren't used to asking for it, but it's important. It's when it's needed. So here's a video from the Washington Post. This is Joe Biden talking about he just most recently signed a bunch of executive orders on healthcare. So specifically healthcare, basically trying to block and undo all of the attacks that Donald Trump put on the Affordable Care Act and abortion rights in the United States, women's rights. And so a bunch of what Biden doing legitimately is undoing what Trump has done. But that's really, in a lot of ways, what a lot of people elected him to do. Was Trump was a nightmare. We didn't like the way the country was going. Keep in mind, a majority of Americans did not elect Donald Trump. A majority of electoral college votes elected Trump. Almost more than 3 million people voted for Hillary Clinton, and I'm trying to remember the math. It might be something like 8 or 9 million more Americans voted for Joe Biden, and Democrats to control the Senate as well. Don't forget that. So let's hear what he has to say about these executive orders.
Orders are basically, the best way to describe them, to undo the damage Trump has done. There's nothing new that we're doing here other than restoring the Affordable Care Act and restoring the Medicaid to the way it was before Trump became president, which by fiat he changed, made more inaccessible, more expensive, and more difficult for people to qualify for either of those two items, the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid. And the second order I'm going to be signing also changes what the president has done, the president, what former president has done.
Yes, Trump is the former president, Joe. This is, what people would call him Sleepy Joe for. The way, he's not a spring chicken, admittedly, but, you could have put a can of soup up against Donald Trump and we would have voted for him.
And that a memorandum reversed my predecessor's attack on women's health access. And as we continue to battle COVID-19, even more critical Americans have meaningful access to health care. And so that's what I'm about to do. And again, I'm not initiating any new law, any new aspect of the law. This is going back to what the situation was prior to the president's executive orders. And the first one I'm going to be signing here is the strengthened Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And
this is the other thing, guys. The Trump administration tried to hobble Medicaid across the United States by switching it to block grants, weakening the funding for Medicaid. Medicaid is government-run, kind of like Medicare, health coverage, that kicks in once you are in a certain economic bracket, once you slip into the poverty range, basically. So it's a good thing for him to do this. I think definitely a lot of people need Medicaid right now, and it's hard to sign up for. That's why I support Medicare for All and Bernie Sanders' bill, is just to make it universal so everybody has it. And remove a lot of the barriers and means testing that goes into programs like this. Jay Coleman says, #Pain Gang. Hey, Jay, how you doing? Jay is one of my more regular listeners. I also want to thank a member of my audience from nearby, from San Luis Obispo, who reached out to me and said that he had this Majority Reports hoodie that I'm wearing right now. That I wouldn't, it was too big for him or whatever, so he asked if I wanted it. So I jumped on that. I said, heck yeah, man. And so he shipped it out to me, and I promised I'd wear it on stream today. So that's what I'm wearing. It says "Left is Best" on the back, and it sure is. Rest in power, Michael Brooks, of course. Feel free to say hi to me in the comments if you're here. That's to Tyler, who gave me this sweatshirt. Hello to you, Jay. Thank you for being here. Let's see. And yeah, here's a story that kind of dives deeper into what we're talking about here. Biden's use of executive actions undo Trump legacy. As is now common after transition to power in the U.S., the new president, Joe Biden, is making swift and extensive use of unilateral powers he now wields. By the end of his first full week, he had issued 39 executive actions, orders, memorandum, and proclamations, many of which overturned similar actions by his predecessor, Donald Trump. Such directives can instantly change the course of American governance without any involvement by the lawmakers in Congress. Some critics worry they can be overused, even abused by the inhabitants of the White House. So that's the thing. Trump led by executive order for years, especially once they lost control of the House. That was, and a lot of executive orders that were clearly unconstitutional, and they were just throwing stuff at the wall. The Muslim ban was a good example where the Supreme Court smacked it down, and then they just went back and retooled it a little bit, and then got it through. And it was so obvious it was a racist, and anti-religious, in violation of the First Amendment. It targeted Muslim countries. So let's see. Got some comments here. H-word 1087 says, if it weren't for Medicaid, people I know and love would never get the care they need. Wow. Well, I'm glad Biden has, is returning it back to normal. I think it needs better funding. I think we should have more of it. Jay Coleman says the United States is in the dark ages on healthcare coverage. That is the truth. Let's see. Ryan says, I have Medi-Cal medical insurance. I use a lot of programs to help me through life. I'm glad, since I live on my own since 2009. Good for you, Ryan. So, yeah, I mean, these programs are massively helpful. Again, Medicare for all. I think that should be the goal of the Democratic Party. That's what progressives are moving towards. I think we should keep pushing them that way and keep electing members of the House. Get some senators in there, more of them anyway, who support Medicare for all. So what are some of the executive orders Biden has issued? The 39 presidential actions listed on the White House website as of January 28th on his 10th day in office included executive orders to end the use of privately run prisons. This was one that happened the other day this was huge. I think to me, I think it's a great step forward. Biden has issued a directive that said no federal contracts with private prisons. A lot of people, there is a segment of the left that whenever any progress is made, they're going to say, well, there's still all of this. Of course, there's always going to need to be more progress, like states. There are all these states who have contracts with state prison or privately run prisons. So, what does that mean? That federal prisons now cannot have private prisons. I think this is going to be big for the detention of immigrants and people picked up by Border Patrol and ICE. Trump was sending a lot of these people, these detention camps and detention facilities were privately owned. And in fact, that's where we have some of the more, disgusting reports where out of these privately run detention facilities, this is where kids were claiming they were being molested by the staff, by guards. And I can't remember if the detention facility where women were having unwanted hysterectomies, they were being sterilized, basically like a eugenics program. I can't remember if that one was private or not. But Biden has banned federal contracts with private prisons. And the thing that's good about this is you have to understand the way American government works. It's a giant ship, right? And it's a slow-moving ship. And it has all of these, smaller. You have the federal government, which is our largest and most, important or powerful government. But then through federalism, we are constantly, we have smaller and smaller versions of government that have their own local power. So states, counties, and then municipalities like cities, right? And so if the federal government makes a move, then it causes every other, agency below it, whether it's a state, a county, or a city, to turn its head and go, what? Right? So I saw this here in my community with the coronavirus. Because the Trump administration drug its feet and did so little about coronavirus, you saw very little being done on the state level. California was somewhat of an exception, but especially on the county and the city level, very little being done about coronavirus, in the response to it. And especially when we're only seeing now, like only in the last couple months here in my community, were we seeing businesses being cited for being open in ways they weren't, that wasn't allowed under health orders, right? So I think having the federal government lead by example in this way, now that this gives a green light to governors across the United States, I'm sure it's going to be more Democratic governors than Republican governors, if any, to issue similar executive actions where they can, end or prohibit any more contracts with private prisons. I think it's a good thing. So let's look a little bit more here. Reverse a ban on transgendered Americans serving in the military, gender equality, help Americans buy health insurance during the pandemic. That's a little vague. I don't know if that's the That's the COBRA expansion, which I'm not a fan of. A memorandum boosting federal reimbursement to states that deploy the National Guard to administer vaccines or otherwise to help with COVID-19. Proclamation stopping federal spending on a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Yeah, remember the wall Mexico was supposed to pay for? Does anybody even care anymore that Trump supporters are so used to believing lies that it just didn't matter to them that we were all paying for the wall, that money was appropriated by declaring a fake state of emergency by Trump. And even then, hardly any of the wall got built. A lot of it was rehabbing wall that was already there from the Obama years. So, and most of it was fencing anyways. It's not even a wall, it's just fencing. So, but glad to see we're not tanking money in a useless white nationalist program like that. So those are some of Joe Biden's executive actions. Interesting stuff. I think the big thing that he needs to do that he said he would, that he has not, is to reunite the missing children, the stolen children, the kidnapped children by ICE and the Center for Border Protection, CPB, and ICE, that Trump really reveled, his administration, and Stephen Miller, Jeff Sessions, as he was the Attorney General. That's another thing Biden's administration has done, is they reversed the decision, the Justice Department reversed the decision that made it so, and this is the thing, let me really quick, when right wingers would try to argue with you about child detention, well, he didn't build the cages, Obama built the cages, or Obama locked up kids too. Here's what they're lying to you about, okay? When Jefferson Beauregard Sessions from Alabama, the senator from Alabama, became Attorney General, one of the first things he did was he changed the criminal code over a border crossing. Before this, if you crossed the border, an unauthorized border crossing was a civil violation. It was a civil matter, and people would be released, and whether they needed asylum and all that was handled in immigration court, in civil court. Jeff Sessions changed that to make it a criminal offense. Your very first border crossing now became an automatic criminal defense, so they'd automatically arrest you and take your kids from you, including literally babies nursing at their mother's breast, ripping babies away from nursing mothers, and kidnapping them, and in some cases adopting these children out, in some cases to fundamentalist Christian families. And so it's an almost... it's a creepy mirroring of history of the boarding schools that indigenous Native Americans were forced to live into, being stolen by the missions, being given to settler families, children, that is. And so there's all this creepy stuff that went on that now. So Biden has reversed, or his Justice Department has reversed that border crossing change. But the next thing they have to do that he promised he would do, I remember Joe Biden said during one of the debates that what Trump and ICE had done with these children was criminal. He actually used that word. It's criminal. So I don't know why he hasn't done it already, if I'm going to have some criticism, right?